Imagine waking up every morning believing you are making the healthiest food choices possible, only to discover years later that those very habits may have been quietly accelerating one of the most overlooked diseases of aging. Point the banana on your breakfast table, the whole grain bread proudly replacing white bread. The low-fat canned vegetable soup sitting in your pantry, because every nutrition article praised it as a heart-healthy option. Point for millions of adults over 60, these foods are symbols of responsible living. Yet, for a growing number of older Americans, they may also become hidden sources of stress on an organ that almost never complains, until significant damage has already occurred. That organ is the kidney. Unlike the heart, which can produce chest pain, or the lungs, which warn us through shortness of breath, the kidneys rarely send dramatic signals when they begin to fail. They continue working silently, filtering nearly 50 gallons of blood every single day, removing waste, balancing minerals, regulating blood pressure, and maintaining the delicate chemical environment. Every cell depends upon. The tragedy is that they can lose a remarkable amount of function before a person notices anything unusual. This silent progression is exactly why chronic kidney disease has become one of the fastest-growing health challenges among older adults. Millions of people live with declining kidney function without knowing it, continuing to follow dietary advice designed for younger, healthier kidneys that no longer process nutrients the same way. The transition happens so gradually that most people never recognize when the rules have changed. Beginning around age 40, kidney filtration naturally declines by roughly 1% each year. At first, this reduction is insignificant. The kidneys possess an enormous reserve capacity, allowing them to compensate for years without obvious symptoms. But by the time many adults reach their 70s, that reserve has quietly diminished. Blood tests often reveal that filtration capacity has fallen by 25 to 30%. Despite the individual feeling perfectly healthy. No pain, no fever. No obvious warning. Just a laboratory value that continues moving in the wrong direction. That value is called the estimated glomerular filtration rate, or eGFR. Although the name sounds technical, its meaning is surprisingly simple. Inside each kidney are approximately 1 million microscopic filtering units known as glomeruli. These tiny structures continuously separate waste products from the bloodstream. While preserving substances, the body still needs. The eGFR measures how efficiently this entire filtration network is functioning. An eGFR above 60 generally indicates that the kidneys are filtering adequately. For most adults. Once the number falls below 60 for several months, physicians begin classifying the condition as chronic kidney disease. At that point, the kidneys are still working, but they are operating with much less reserve. This distinction changes everything. Because dietary recommendations that benefit healthy kidneys may become problematic when filtration declines. Consider a familiar scenario. A 71-year-old retired teacher receives routine blood work. She exercises every morning, never smokes, follows medical advice carefully, and believes she is doing everything possible to stay healthy. Her doctor notices a mildly elevated creatinine level and orders an eGFR test. The result comes back at 50-2. Stage 3 chronic kidney disease. She is advised to watch her diet and return in 6 months. Determined to improve her health, she researches online and begins replacing white bread with whole grain bread, eating bran cereal every morning, adding bananas and avocados because they are praised for supporting heart health, and choosing canned vegetable soup because it appears nutritious, low in fat, and convenient. Every decision seems logical. Every recommendation comes from respected health sources. Yet 6 months later, her eGFR has dropped even further. She cannot understand why. The answer is surprisingly simple. Nobody explained that healthy kidneys and aging kidneys do not always follow the same nutritional rulebook. That is where the real story begins. To understand why seemingly healthy foods can become harmful after kidney function declines, you first need to understand what the kidneys are actually doing every second of every day. Most people think of the kidneys as simple filters. In Reality, they function more like highly intelligent chemical laboratories. Point every minute. They analyze your blood, deciding which minerals to keep, which waste products to remove, how much water should remain in circulation, and whether your blood pressure needs adjusting. They regulate acid-base balance, activate vitamin D, help produce red blood cells through hormone signaling, and maintain precise concentrations of electrolytes that allow every muscle, including the heart, to function properly. Point when kidney function falls below normal, these balancing systems begin losing efficiency. Point the changes are subtle at first, but over time they become increasingly important. Point the first major challenge involves phosphorus. Point phosphorus is an essential mineral. Your bones need it. Your cells need it to produce energy. Every membrane in your body contains phosphorus in some form. The problem begins when the kidneys can no longer remove excess phosphorus efficiently. Point instead of leaving through the urine, phosphorus gradually accumulates in the bloodstream. Point doctors call this condition hyperphosphatemia. Although the word sounds intimidating, the consequences are surprisingly easy to understand. Point 2. Much phosphorus stimulates hormonal changes that pull calcium out of the bones, while encouraging calcium deposits inside blood vessels. Point instead of staying strong inside your skeleton, calcium slowly migrates into places where it does not belong. Point arteries gradually become stiffer. Point blood vessels lose flexibility. Point the heart has to work harder to pump blood through an increasingly rigid circulatory system. Point over time, this process raises the risk of heart attacks, strokes, vascular disease, and even faster progression of kidney damage itself. Modern nephrology research has repeatedly demonstrated that phosphorus control is not simply about protecting the kidneys. It is also about protecting the cardiovascular system. Point but here is the detail that surprises even many patients who carefully read nutrition labels. Point not all phosphorus behaves the same. Natural phosphorus found inside foods such as beans, grains, dairy products, and meats is only partially absorbed by the digestive system. Depending on the food source, the body absorbs roughly 40 to 60% of it. Point added phosphorus is completely different. Point food manufacturers frequently use phosphate additives to improve texture, preserve freshness, enhance flavor, or extend shelf life. Point these additives appear in ingredient lists under names such as sodium phosphate, calcium phosphate, phosphoric acid, diphosphates, and triphosphates. Point unlike natural phosphorus, these inorganic phosphate additives are absorbed almost completely, often close to 100%. Point that means two foods may appear similar nutritionally while placing dramatically different demands on weakened kidneys. Point unfortunately, nutrition labels rarely tell consumers whether the phosphorus comes naturally from food or from highly absorbable industrial additives. Point the ingredient list often becomes the only clue. Then comes the second major challenge. Point potassium. Point for decades, physicians encouraged people to eat potassium-rich foods because potassium helps regulate blood pressure, supports nerve function, and allows muscles, including the heart, to contract normally. Point for someone with healthy kidneys, this advice remains excellent. Point healthy kidneys remove excess potassium with remarkable precision. Point but once kidney function declines, that safety system weakens. Point potassium begins accumulating inside the bloodstream. Doctors refer to this as hyperkalemia. Point unlike phosphorus, elevated potassium can become dangerous very quickly. Point the heart depends on carefully balanced electrical signals to maintain a normal rhythm. Point too much potassium disrupts those electrical pathways. Point the result may begin with fatigue, muscle weakness, numbness, or an irregular heartbeat. In severe cases, dangerously high potassium can trigger life-threatening cardiac arrhythmias, requiring emergency treatment. Point this creates one of the most confusing situations older adults face. The very foods promoted for decades as heart-healthy bananas, avocados, oranges, spinach, dried apricots, potatoes, and tomatoes can suddenly require careful moderation once the eGFR falls below 60. Point the foods themselves are not unhealthy. Point the kidneys simply no longer possess the same filtering capacity they once had, and unless someone knows their kidney function has changed, they may unknowingly continue eating exactly as they always have. believing every choice is protecting their health while their kidneys struggle silently beneath the surface. The third challenge hidden inside declining kidney function is one that often surprises even health-conscious older adults: point protein. For years, nutrition experts have encouraged people over 60 to eat more protein to preserve muscle mass, reduce frailty, and maintain independence. That advice is absolutely supported by research for healthy older adults. Point as people age, they naturally lose muscle through a process known as sarcopenia. Maintaining adequate protein intake helps slow that decline, improves balance, reduces fall risk, and supports recovery after illness. Point. But kidney disease changes the equation. Point. Every gram of protein eventually leaves behind waste products after the body has used what it needs for repair and energy. One of the primary waste products is urea, along with nitrogen-containing compounds that must be removed through the kidneys. Point. Healthy kidneys handle this workload efficiently. Damaged kidneys have far less reserve. Point. When someone with reduced kidney function consumes very large amounts of protein every day, each meal forces the kidneys to temporarily increase their filtration rate in order to eliminate these waste products. Point. Kidney specialists call this phenomenon glomerular hyperfiltration. Point. Initially, it may appear beneficial because filtration temporarily increases. Point. But over months and years, constantly forcing already weakened filtering units to work beyond their comfortable capacity may accelerate structural damage inside the remaining healthy nephrons. Point. Think of it like asking an aging engine to operate near maximum speed. Every day it may continue functioning for a while. Point. But the long-term wear becomes much greater. Point. Numerous nephrology studies have shown that among people already living with chronic kidney disease, excessively high protein intake is associated with a faster decline in eGFR and quicker progression toward advanced kidney failure. Point. That does not mean protein becomes the enemy. Point. Far from it, protein remains essential for immune function, wound healing, muscle preservation, hormone production, and countless metabolic processes. Point. The key difference is moderation. Point. For someone with healthy kidneys, higher protein intake may support strength and healthy aging. Point. For someone whose eGFR has already fallen below 60, the ideal amount often becomes more individualized and should be adjusted with medical guidance rather than following generalized nutrition advice found online. Point. This misunderstanding appears regularly in kidney clinics. Point. Imagine a 68-year-old retired military veteran determined to stay strong. As he ages, his physician encourages resistance exercise and reminds him that preserving muscle mass is important. Point. Friends at the gym recommend protein shakes twice a day. Point. Fitness magazines promote high-protein diets. Point. Protein bars become afternoon snacks. Point. Chicken breast appears at nearly every meal. Point. Everything sounds reasonable. Point. What no one notices is that his laboratory reports have shown an eGFR around 54. For nearly 2 years. Point. No symptoms. Point. No pain, no warning. Point. 14 months later, another blood test reveals his eGFR has fallen into the low 40s. Point. Confused, he asks the same heartbreaking question nephrologists hear every week. I thought I was doing everything right. The honest answer is that he probably was according to advice intended for people without chronic kidney disease. His kidneys simply required a different nutritional strategy. Point. Then comes the fourth major challenge: sodium. Point. Unlike phosphorus or potassium, almost everyone already recognizes sodium as something that should be limited. Point. What many people underestimate is just how quickly sodium accumulates inside processed foods. Healthy kidneys continuously remove excess sodium, maintaining stable blood volume and blood pressure. Point. As kidney function declines, sodium clearance slows. Point. Water follows sodium. Blood volume increases. Point. Blood pressure rises. Point. That higher pressure damages the tiny blood vessels inside the kidneys. Point. Those damaged vessels reduce filtration even further. Point. The cycle then repeats itself. Less filtration. Point. More sodium retention. Higher blood pressure. Point. More kidney damage. Point. Medical experts often describe this as one of the most destructive self-perpetuating cycles in chronic kidney disease. Point. Unfortunately, some of the biggest sodium sources are foods people rarely suspect. Point. A single serving of canned soup may contain 800 to 1200 milligrams of sodium. Many frozen dinners, canned vegetables, instant noodles, packaged rice mixes, sauces, deli meats, and convenience meals contain similarly high amounts. For someone advised to remain below roughly 1500 to 2000 milligrams per day. One meal may consume over half the daily recommendation. The kidneys never get a chance to recover. Instead, they spend every day working against a constant stream of excess sodium that quietly pushes blood pressure higher, while accelerating the loss of the filtering capacity that remains. If there is one lesson kidney specialists wish more people understood, it is this. Kidney disease is not simply a disease of the kidneys. It is a disease that eventually affects nearly every major organ in the body as kidney function declines. The consequences spread far beyond the urinary system. The heart works harder. The bones become weaker. Blood vessels stiffen. The immune system loses efficiency. Even the brain may begin to feel the effects through fatigue, poor concentration, and reduced mental clarity. That is why protecting the kidneys is really about protecting the entire body. One of the most overlooked dangers comes not from obviously unhealthy foods, but from highly processed products marketed as convenient and nutritious. Take canned soup as an example. Many older adults choose canned soups because they are easy to prepare, inexpensive, and often labeled as containing vegetables, whole grains, or lean proteins. On the surface, they appear to be excellent choices. But behind the nutrition label, many contain extremely high amounts of sodium, along with phosphate additives used to preserve texture and extend shelf life for someone with healthy kidneys. Occasional consumption may not create major problems. For someone living with stage 3 chronic kidney disease, eating these products regularly can gradually increase blood pressure, worsen fluid retention, and place additional stress on already weakened kidneys. The same concern applies to processed deli meats. Turkey slices. Ham. Bacon. Sausages. Hot dogs. Many are loaded with sodium and phosphate preservatives that dramatically increase the mineral burden. The kidneys must process. Research has consistently shown that diets rich in ultra-processed foods are associated with faster progression of chronic kidney disease and increased cardiovascular risk. The concern is not one meal, it is years of repeated exposure. Then there is another hidden source that surprises many patients. Dark-colored soft drinks. Unlike clear carbonated beverages, many cola drinks contain phosphoric acid. This ingredient provides the characteristic sharp flavor people recognize immediately. Unfortunately, it also delivers highly absorbable phosphorus. For healthy kidneys, this usually poses little concern. But for individuals with declining kidney function, frequent consumption may contribute to elevated phosphorus levels over time. Many nephrologists encourage patients to replace sugary soft drinks with water, sparkling water without phosphate additives, or unsweetened herbal tea whenever possible. Hydration itself also deserves careful attention. For years, people have heard the advice to drink as much water as possible. While staying hydrated remains important, excessive water intake is not automatically beneficial. For every kidney patient. Healthy kidneys easily adjust to varying fluid intake. Damaged kidneys often cannot. Patients with advanced kidney disease or heart failure may actually require individualized fluid limits to prevent swelling, shortness of breath, and dangerous fluid overload. On the other hand, chronic dehydration may reduce kidney perfusion and increase the risk of acute kidney injury. The correct answer is balance, not extremes. This is why personalized medical advice is so important. Another common misconception involves dietary supplements. Many older adults assume that vitamins, herbal products, and over-the-counter kidney detox formulas must be safe because they are sold without prescription. Unfortunately, this assumption has led to numerous cases of preventable kidney injury. Certain herbal extracts contain compounds capable of directly damaging kidney tissue. Others interfere with prescription medications. Even high doses of vitamin C may increase the risk of oxalate accumulation in susceptible individuals. While some bodybuilding supplements contain concentrated ingredients that dramatically increase metabolic workload. Kidney specialists repeatedly emphasize one simple rule: natural does not always mean harmless. Before starting any supplement, especially after age 60 or after being diagnosed with chronic kidney disease, patients should review every product with their physician or pharmacist. The kidneys already work continuously without rest. They should not be forced to process unnecessary substances simply because a marketing label promises better health. Perhaps the greatest danger is that kidney disease usually progresses quietly. Most people feel completely normal, while damage continues beneath the surface. That is why regular blood work becomes one of the most powerful tools for protecting long-term kidney health. Early detection creates opportunities. Late detection often leaves only limited options. The encouraging news is that chronic kidney disease does not always progress rapidly. In many cases, its course can be slowed dramatically when patients understand what their kidneys need and begin making informed decisions early. While modern medicine cannot always restore lost kidney function, it can often preserve the function that remains for many years. The first and perhaps most powerful step is knowing your numbers. Many people memorize their blood pressure, cholesterol, or blood sugar levels, yet have no idea what their eGFR is or whether protein has begun leaking into their urine. These two measurements tell physicians far more about kidney health than symptoms alone ever could. A declining eGFR indicates reduced filtration capacity. Protein in the urine, often measured as the urine albumin to creatinine ratio, signals that the kidney's microscopic filters are becoming damaged. Even small amounts of persistent protein leakage may predict faster disease progression and higher cardiovascular risk. This is why nephrologists emphasize routine monitoring rather than waiting until symptoms appear. The kidneys often remain remarkably quiet while damage accumulates. By the time swelling, nausea, persistent fatigue, loss of appetite, or shortness of breath develop, significant kidney function may already have been lost. Early awareness changes the entire conversation. Instead of reacting to advanced disease, physicians can intervene. While meaningful kidney function is still preserved. Lifestyle also becomes a powerful form of treatment. Regular physical activity improves blood pressure control, enhances insulin sensitivity, reduces inflammation, and supports cardiovascular health, all of which indirectly protect the kidneys. The goal does not have to be intense athletic training. A brisk 30-minute walk most days of the week, light resistance exercises, swimming, or cycling can provide substantial benefits. Equally important is maintaining a healthy body weight. Excess body fat contributes to hypertension, insulin resistance, and chronic inflammation, each placing additional stress on the kidneys. Even modest weight reduction has been shown to improve metabolic health and reduce pressure on these vital organs. Blood pressure deserves special attention. Hypertension remains both a cause and a consequence of chronic kidney disease. Elevated pressure damages the tiny blood vessels inside the kidneys, while declining kidney function often causes blood pressure to rise even further. Breaking this cycle is one of the most effective ways to slow disease progression. Diabetes management is equally critical. Persistently elevated blood sugar slowly injures the delicate filtering structures within the kidneys. Careful glucose control, combined with appropriate medications when needed, has consistently been shown to reduce the risk of diabetic kidney disease progressing toward kidney failure. Medication safety is another area many people overlook. Pain relievers such as nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, including ibuprofen and naproxen, may seem harmless because they are available over the counter. Yet frequent or prolonged use can reduce blood flow to the kidneys and accelerate injury, particularly in older adults or those with existing kidney disease. Patients should never discontinue prescribed medications without consulting their physician, but they should always inform healthcare providers about every prescription, supplement, and over-the-counter product they are taking. The kidneys process far more substances than most people realize. Perhaps the most important message is one of hope rather than fear. A diagnosis of stage 3 chronic kidney disease is not a sentence to dialysis point, many individuals remain stable. For years, even decades, through careful monitoring, personalized nutrition, appropriate medical treatments, and healthy daily habits point the goal is not perfection. The goal is preservation point every healthy meal. Every controlled blood pressure reading, every walk, every well-managed blood sugar level, and every informed conversation with a healthcare provider represents another investment in protecting the kidneys that continue working tirelessly every second of every day. Because these remarkable organs ask for very little point, they ask only that we recognize their quiet work before silence becomes irreversible.